I was totally burnt out and stressed out. I was on the wrong path. They weren't looking forward to retirement. They were dreading it. They were really fearful about leaving behind that old identity. I just felt like this is my mission. When we're living in alignment with our authentic selves, life just feels a little bit easier and joyful. I talk about retirement as the ability to do what you want when you want, and going into something new can feel terrifying. There's so many different options available, but I think it's for each of us to go, what is it for me? What do I actually
hmm
want my life to look like as I get older? Who is my
hmm
future self?
Hello, and welcome to the Success Differently podcast. My name is Michelle Sorgaroli, and I am your host today.
And we are being joined by our very special guest, Tammy Vigue.
Now, Tammy is a retirement coach and speaker, and she supports people in transition from their very successful careers into a more meaningful retirement. After 20 years in the pension and investment industry, Tammy realized that traditional financial and retirement planning was incomplete. So, inspired by her early years when she pursued a bachelor's in psychology, Tammy branched out into coaching and she has created the Curated Retirement program in 2021. Today, she empowers high achievers to design purposeful post-career lives. And I'm very excited about where this conversation is going to go. Thanks for joining us today, Tammy.
Thank you for the introduction, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a treat. We've known each other a little while, and it's been really fun watching you develop and create your career in this retirement niche, if you will. It's just been
Mhm.
a really exciting thing. The thing I want to ask about to get us started is you too you kind of been on this journey. Like you too had a successful career where the
Exactly.
financial industry served you well,
Absolutely.
as I understand it. As you like to say, it was successful on paper.
Yeah, that's right.
You had the career, you had the home, you had the lifestyle, everything was good, but a little bit unfulfilled. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah.
So, as I understand it, you traded in your career and your briefcase for a yoga mat.
That is exactly what I did. Yeah.
Would you like to share a little bit about that journey with us?
Yeah,
Tell us
yeah.
more.
I was successful on paper. I had the career, the home, everything that I thought that I wanted. And I went through this period where I just felt like there was something missing. So I used to say, well, now looking back on it, it was like I had this mantra, I'll be happy when I
Mm,
make the promotion. I'll be happy when I lose weight. And so it was this constant feeling like something was missing in my life. So the reality is, I did reinvent myself. So I went from that corporate career into, I did become a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher, and I
mm,
started a wellness coaching business. But the reason that I did that was because I was totally burnt out and stressed out.
mm,
So that's really the reason that I actually ended up leaving my career the first time around.
ah,
So there's been a
mhm,
couple of iterations of my coaching business, as you
mhm,
know, but the first time around, I was heading for burnout. So I was successful, my career was going really well, but I was burning out. So the real story is. I was losing my hair. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't make decisions. And so I found myself in the doctor's office
Oh my gosh.
describing all these symptoms, these things that were going on in my life. And he looked at me and he said, "You need to take a stress leave." And I looked at him and I said, "I can't. I'm too busy at work." And he looked at me like I had two heads and
Yeah.
said, "Well, if you're not going to take a stress leave, you need to read this book." And it was Gabor Mate's When the Body Says No.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it
Mm,
home that night and went back to the office after that appointment, took it home that night and read the whole book that evening. And in the book, Gabor Mate describes that if we can't slow down, if we can't say no, then our body eventually does it for us in the form of disease. And he highlights a few that stood out: MS, so multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, and breast cancer. And my mom had all of them. So the
okay,
very
that's
next
oh my
day, I
gosh, that
didn't take a
goosebumps.
stress leave. I went in and handed in my letter of resignation. So I took a year off. And after that point in time, I needed to figure this out myself. And so I did the deep dive into all things spiritual, really. I became a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, and then really went into coaching. And primarily my coaching was focused on stress management. So I needed to solve it for myself. So 1 year after I left that career, I opened my business, coaching business that at that time, and I called it Sit Still. So it was all about helping people slow down and figure out what it is that they really want. So I think so many of us were trapped on that, the hedonic treadmill where it's like the next thing. We think that the next thing is going to make us happy. And my realization was it was none of those things that I thought I wanted. It was really about coming back to myself and figuring out who I really was, and
Mm-hmm.
how to live a life in alignment with my
Mm-hmm.
values and what I really wanted. So that was the first iteration, but it really was a process of reinvention. Absolutely. It was like the complete 180, corporate
Mm-hmm.
career to I'm a yoga teacher. And so I know the challenges too that come with
Mm-hmm.
completely reinventing yourself. How do you do that? And also the fear of what will people think? I used to be this and now I'm introducing myself as this. There's a lot of challenge in that as well. Yeah. So
So
that was the
yeah.
first iteration. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Well, in
Yeah.
coaching, we have an expression, your pain is your purpose.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah. It's like the hero's journey, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Nothing becomes more pronounced than when we're in pain,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And certainly having gone through that yourself, that would have been a really traumatic experience for you, I would
Hmm.
imagine.
It was, I just felt like it was when I was in that career and just doing, the career was going well. It was just sort of the all other parts of my life that were being neglected. So I felt like I didn't really realize there was other options. I thought that I should want this path. And, I was quote unquote successful. And really it was that health scare, that
Hmm.
crisis that made me realize that I was on the wrong path. I could be successful, but I wasn't necessarily fulfilled or happy. And
Yeah,
and that was the first wake-up call for me. Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. You said a couple of things that I'm kind of picking up on that I'm curious about because you said at one point you said I went back to myself. And then you've also
Yeah.
talked about reinvention, and you actually said those very close together,
Yeah.
back to yourself and reinvention. Can you help us understand what you mean? Because they seem like they're different, but I sense that they're
Hmm.
the same for you.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that they are the same. And it's almost like I would say I remembered like a remembering of who I really was. And so, it's funny, like a lot of times in my career, in the corporate and the
Mhm.
financial industry, um, I felt like I was in that Sesame Street skit. One of these things is not like the others, right? So I was working with a lot of men, and it was very hard driving, like sales environments earlier on. And I remember at one point in time, the company had hired a coach for the sales team, and she had come in and she was asking us about peak experiences, and the guys in the room were talking about like hiking Kilimanjaro or trekking with gorillas in Rwanda, and diving with sharks, and I'm like, peak experiences. I'm like, oh my goodness, like what is a peak experience for me? It's like walking around Stanley Park. And so I felt like I was in this environment where I was kind of um not necessarily honoring who I really was, to be in a way that I thought I needed to be in order to be successful. And so it was really that idea of underneath all of that busyness and all of that achievement and all of that pushing, the real me was really like, I value beauty and calm and creativity. So it was like, it was a reinvention, but it was almost like the excavation of all the stuff that I thought that I needed to do or be in order to be successful. So I think, yeah, it's a remembering, it's a reinvention and a coming back to yourself. And so I think it's some of the work that I do with my clients is helping them to remember and how to slow down. So many of us have been conditioned to be achievers,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the truth. And you're actually coming to a question I had around, you did your degree, your bachelor's was in psychology.
Yeah.
So what happened between psychology and the pension industry? How
Yeah.
did that
I
happen?
always find it fascinating to see how did you land in that industry, right? Yeah, so that's a good story too. So I loved psychology. I actually wanted to be a psychologist. I knew that that's what I was going to do. And so as part of my education, I was going to go on and go into graduate studies. I'd done very well in school. I loved it. And I started volunteering at the crisis center. So that was the next step. I needed to get some experience, in that
Mm,
field in order to be accepted into a graduate program. And so I was training at the crisis center, and I was loving it. People, I felt like I was really helping people. And
mhm,
then I got a call in the training. So imagine I was in the training, and there's other people, my my other trainees, the other people who are training, they're in another room and they're listening to the call. And there's also another like one of the trainers listening to this call. So I pick up the phone, and the woman on the other end of the line was really angry. She was very depressed and she was really angry.
mm,
And I couldn't match her. So I couldn't match her, and I felt like I didn't I wasn't doing a good job, and I really questioned whether, she was angry and saying, "You're not helping me," and "You
mm,
suck," and all of these things, like really yelling at me. And at at that time, I felt like that experience. So having all these people listening to this call in the other room, trying to navigate it myself and manage my own emotions and trying to apply all the things that we were
mhm,
learning, match the person's energy, repeat some of the things that they're saying, just really trying and connect. And I wasn't able to do that. And so
mm,
it was a pivotal moment in my life. I actually, in that moment, decided that it wasn't going to be my career path.
mhm,
So I actually, I left behind that dream of being a psychologist. I
mm,
didn't, I quit the training program for the crisis center. And then I ended up meeting a friend. A friend of mine had introduced me to a woman who was working in the financial industry at the time. So again, I was kind of going through this, who am I? What should I be doing with my life experience? I was still in my 20s and met this woman who was really successful in the financial industry. And I thought, well, if she can do it, I can do it too. And so I got on the phone back in the days when there was the yellow pages, and went through and started calling brokerage firms, and I got an interview and got that job. And so I started as a broker's assistant. So it was this sort of weird, random, like, how in the world did I end up in that industry? But it was really sort of random and chance. And
mhm.
yeah.
I sensed as you were sharing the story about the crisis center that there was some memories coming back for you.
Yeah, I honestly felt, I haven't talked about that in a really long time. I honestly feel emotional about it.
Yeah.
But for some time, I actually worried that she might have harmed herself.
Mm,
And after the call, we debriefed it, and the trainer said, you know, they didn't think that there was a big enough risk that they needed to send emergency services. But
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, you're oozing compassion, Tammy.
yeah,
You do anyway.
thank you.
But yeah,
Yeah.
um, your love for people's coming through right now. So as you went into your career in financial services, in the
Hmm.
investment industry, what kept you there for 20 years? Like what was exciting to you?
Well, the people. I loved my clients. I loved the people that I worked with. It was exciting and I was learning a lot. When I got the job as a broker's assistant, I really didn't even know what a stock or a bond was. It was it was an edge that I wanted to learn about. So I was really excited about that and excited about it was very fast paced and working with clients and yeah, just learning a lot. And then I really devoted myself to it and I was very good at it. So got promoted and moved into different positions. So there was that aspect of it of feeling like I'm contributing that was really important to
Mm,
me. And the relationships were obviously really important to me. So, so yeah, it felt like a good fit. And then like I said, I always have been the person that whatever I decide to do, I go all in. So I was going to be the best assistant when I first started, and I was going to be the best salesperson and on and on and on. And so then I got to this point, like I said, when I had that real health scare where I'm
mhm,
like, okay, I have to change the way that I'm living my life. It wasn't that I didn't like the industry. There was so much that I got from it. It was just the way that I was approaching it. And like I said, it wasn't my natural passion. I learned it and I was good at it and I enjoyed it and was successful, but it was like I knew that there was something missing, right? Something for me to come back to and claim. And so, yeah, so that's why I ended up staying in the industry for so long. And then I launched that
mhm,
coaching business, stress management and all that. And, but I did end up coming back into the industry after that. So I had my coaching business from about 2007 to hmm, 2013, maybe. And, um, and then I got invited back into the industry. They wanted me to cover a mat leave, and then I ended up sort of staying within the
interesting.
industry, but weaving in some of the stuff
Mhm,
that I had built and worked on in the meantime into my work in the industry. So yeah, and then it was also this experience where when I was starting to coach around stress management, so many of the people that were my clients were me, right? Really working hard and maybe sacrificing other parts of their lives. And so I felt like I could see it and I knew exactly what they were going through. And then the other part that happened, which was sort of that, oh, this is where I'm meant to be, like coming full circle,
mhm,
is many of the people coming into my program for stress management were lawyers in their 60s, and many of them had mandatory retirement as part of their partnership agreements. And so prior to that, having at that point worked in the industry for about 13 years, I believed that if you had a lot of money saved for retirement, you'd be looking forward to it, right? If it was only a financial decision.
mhm.
But all that changed for me when I started coaching these lawyers because they had to retire and they weren't looking forward to retirement, even though they
Right.
had all the money they would ever need.
Mhm,
They were dreading it. So they were talking about themselves as if they were becoming invisible, irrelevant, that they no longer had any value. They were really fearful about leaving behind that old identity and all of the things that, all of their experience and their
mhm,
skills and their whole lives. And so
yeah.
they were so afraid of this next piece. And so I knew that there was more to retirement at that point than just the
Mm,
financial piece. And so I started coaching, retirement coaching at that point in time, then went back into the pension industry and started weaving this into the work that I was doing with my clients there.
mhm,
So yeah, it was sort of this full circle moment. It's like I'd reinvented myself and then I went back into the financial industry, but was able to see, really truly see that the way that we plan for retirement is incomplete. It's that,
mhm,
we have to understand the life that we want after we leave our careers in order to be able to know whether we have enough money to fund it too, right? So I always think, we we have to change the way that we're doing it. Start with the life plan first and then look at the financial plan to align those two things. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Exactly. So when you were realizing this, when sort of that aha moment happened,
Hmm.
um, what were you drawing? What's the question I want? I'm curious about where I want to go with this is what lit you up? You had the aha, but what
Yeah.
was it that captured your heart?
Oh,
Because you have
yeah.
a big one.
I thank you. Likewise, right? That's why we connect
Thank
so
you.
well. Um, I was just shocked at these incredible people. When originally I only coached women,
Mm,
I was shocked that they would describe themselves as no longer mattering because I would look at them and feel so inspired by them and see them as having so much potential and so much life left. And
mm,
for them to be thinking about themselves as if this was an ending, I just felt like this is my mission. Like I am meant to transform the way that we think about aging, even the way that we measure our success, the way that we, yeah, like it was that piece where I was just so shocked at the way that we think that our value is tied only to
mm,
producing and achieving, and that if we continue believing that leaving our careers makes us less valuable, we will create the experience on the other end of our careers where we disengage and don't
right.
live up to our full potential. So it's like I feel like I have this gift to see people for who they really are.
Mm,
So one of the things that I say is, the secret to having a successful retirement is to have purpose, to have a new purpose or
mm,
redefine your purpose.
yeah.
And I would say my purpose is to help people discover theirs. And I feel like I have this ability to see someone's actual gifts, like who they are, their essence, and to help them see it too. So I feel like that's what I'm meant to do in this world.
Hmm.
Truly. Yeah.
Well, purpose is, you spoke about purpose in retirement, and of course, you're in the still in a professional working capacity with purpose.
Yeah.
And this is something that I see a lot as well in the work that I do with clients who are in their working years.
Mhm.
The impact and the role of purpose and
Yeah.
how important it's something, I think I've often said if because purpose is something that gets bandied about very casually,
Yeah.
particularly in the last 10 years or so, it seems
Hmm.
to me.
Hmm.
It's something that everybody talks about. And what I always say is if your purpose literally doesn't light you up like a firecracker, it's not the right one. There's something missing, right?
Exactly.
It
Yes.
it and people are like, huh? Like it sometimes they think, well, no, this is that my professional purpose. I'm like, no, no, no. Your
Yeah.
professional purpose and your personal purpose are kind of linked.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, so you're right. It gets bandied about a lot, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what purpose is. Sometimes people will think that in order to have purpose, they have to be doing something extraordinary, like, saving the whales or fighting climate change or
Yeah.
all. So those people do have purpose, but the way that I define purpose is living in alignment with your authentic self.
Mm,
When we're living in alignment with our authentic selves, life just feels a little bit easier and joyful. And like you say, that
mhm.
thing that lights you up. It's like, I know who I am really, and I'm doing the things that are
Mhm.
aligned with that person. So I do feel like some of this is a bit of an excavation, right? A remembering, like I said, it's like, who are you really and what's important to you? What matters?
Yeah.
Those things. Like, what are your
Yeah.
natural gifts? How can we find the through line in your life to bring all of that together? And that's how I say, so demystifying purpose from this, elusive thing where it's like, oh, I got to be doing something big to, oh, my purpose is to actually truly be me, right?
Mm.
Living in alignment with my authentic self. And I think that just is so much more spacious. And
hmm And
And
I think, to your point, what I fully agree with you that when we're living in alignment, it's our life is much more joyful and certainly
mhm.
easier. There's a lot more
Yes.
flow.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Totally.
And I'm hearing in your story, which I think is really a fascinating piece, is that um, your purpose for you personally showed up a little bit later for you,
Hmm.
right? And
Oh,
I
yeah.
think when I'm working with clients in their career, as you were in the pension and investment industry, um, very often the purpose is sort of this neglected thing or a secondary thing. That's
Mhm.
for another time, or I can't bring my purpose to work. I
Yes.
can't bring myself into, or I can't be who and contribute in meaningful ways.
Yeah.
So, what I see a lot, Tammy, is that piece where they feel like your work and your purpose are not connected.
Hmm.
And what I'm wondering is, how much do you see that with your clients as they're coming into retirement? Have they had purpose through their career, or do they experience something where they're trying to build a purpose as they're transitioning out of their career?
Yeah, I would say that many of my clients have had very purposeful careers. So, there's some research in psychology around, people who consider their careers a calling are using
Mhm.
four or more of their
Yeah.
signature strengths. That is the case with many of the clients that I work with, that their work
Mhm.
is a calling. It truly is part of their identity. So
Mhm.
they have purpose. Some of them are being forced out of those careers, though. So
Mhm.
many partnership agreements, whether through law firms, accounting firms, often partners do have to retire at a
Mhm.
certain age. And
Mhm.
so for those people who consider their work a calling, leaving that is so, so difficult.
Traumatic, yeah.
So traumatic. It really is. And
Hmm.
so defining purpose on the other side of that is a whole different thing.
Ah,
Some people that I coach just have been maybe similar to my background. It's like I've been successful. This is pretty good. I have liked my work, and but I've always known that there's something missing. So some clients come to me with that, and they might not be sure what the next thing is. So it's like
mm-hmm.
uncovering, like it's sort of like that through line, right? Like it's like, who are you really, and what
Yeah.
what do we want to bring forward into this next phase? So sometimes people will describe the idea of retirement as falling off a cliff. And
Mm,
so I like to think about it as, well, what's the next mountain to climb? Like what is the
yeah,
next thing
what's
for
the
you,
next
right? That
thing?
lights you up.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's I love that you're talking about the through line because I think, at least from my perspective, from what I see, so often people who are working, they're maybe not honoring the through line. They're not honoring the things that are calling them. And
Yeah.
for me, a purpose is some kind of contribution where your life is making a meaningful difference, right?
Hmm.
Where we feel like our work matters or our,
Hmm.
our life matters in some meaningful
Yes.
way. And
Yeah.
sometimes our work is is actually doing that, but we're not attuned to the impact of our work as much as we are attuned to living our skills, living inside of our what's important to us, living in our values and that kind of thing. And that can
Hmm.
cloud the ultimate impact of the calling, if you will,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sometimes gets shadowed, right? And that's what I see a lot is people might be called to their work
Hmm.
um, because they have an intuitive sense of purpose.
Hmm.
And by the time they're in their work and succeeding, that becomes dormant or quiet and overshadowed by their expertise and the mastery and
Yeah.
the focus of their job and the
Yeah.
work that they do, as opposed to the underbelly of the meaning or the calling in the work that is aligned with
Yeah.
who they are. So what you were talking about earlier, if I may, can I share a little
Yeah.
bit of what I've seen?
Yeah. Please.
Thank you. I love how, your psychology was an interest. And obviously, we've mentioned before, you just have such a beautiful heart and a ton
Mm-hmm.
of compassion for people. So having that experience in the crisis center for you
Mm-hmm.
really connected you with that sense of care for people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then what happened as you went into the investment industry, that got, you love the people and you love being able to contribute and all that, but it got shadowed a little bit
Mm-hmm.
over those 20 years.
Yeah,
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 right. And
totally.
then what'd you do? You went into really connecting with yourself again, which is where we start,
Yes,
right?
yeah, it's so true.
Reconnecting with people and love, we start with ourselves.
Yeah.
So, as you think about the impact, when you think about the work that you're doing today, and you think about the journey you've been on,
Mm-hmm.
what's most meaningful for you now in your work?
Yeah, it is really, I would say it's being able to see people in their gifts and seeing them transform from
Mm,
the idea that my identity is only this one thing, my career is my identity,
right.
to what's next for me. So that it's like it's really seeing that transformation where people understand
Hmm.
that it's not all tied to that external,
Right.
right? Those
Mm,
metrics, like the title, or yeah, like it's like we've kind of been conditioned to believe that our worth is
hmm.
that, though. And so
Hmm.
it's being able to see people as they're realizing, as I'm working with them, that there's still so much more waiting, right? So that's the gift for me, is like it's the best feeling. Like I will never retire in the traditional sense. So I talk about retirement as the ability to do what you want when you want.
Hmm.
Many of us will continue working or starting businesses and that kind of thing. And that's my wish, is that I work till the very last day I'm here on this earth, because I love it so much. I get so much from it. And it's like
Hmm.
it's that meaningful connection.
Hmm.
So, in terms of my values, it's relationships, it's meaningful connection and depth. So, the relationships that I had in the financial industry, I loved them,
Hmm.
but I didn't get to talk about finding purpose, or what are your values, or
Right.
what scares you, how do you get outside of your comfort zone, and so that's part of it. And I think it's being witness to people taking on new risks and trying on new identities, in a sense, right? It's like I'm there cheering them on and supporting
Hmm.
them as they do that excavation and let go of some of those old beliefs that they might
Yeah.
have had about work or aging and all those things, and then figuring out what is the next thing for me. So
Hmm.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh,
It's
no,
a
it's
very
great.
long-winded answer,
I
but
heard, you know what? I heard such a great metaphor for a little bit of what you're saying right now. And it was what the story was, and I'm not good at sharing metaphors, so excuse my unskillful attempt at sharing, revealing myself a little bit. But the metaphor was essentially that we put on a button-down shirt, right?
hmm
And when we button it up, let's imagine that we button it up wrong,
right.
right? So we're
Yeah.
wearing this shirt and it's not buttoned properly because one of the buttons was, we buttoned that first button perhaps and it ended up in the wrong hole. We've all done this, right? So it totally makes
Yes,
sense.
yeah.
And the idea was interesting because regardless, if we're a new person, if it's a new shirt and we're new in our career or new at what we're doing,
Yeah.
we're trying to button it up correctly. And we have to pay a lot of attention to
hmm
get those, to really align all those buttons. The interesting one for the perspective of this conversation, this context,
hmm
if that button down shirt has been on in out of alignment, inappropriately buttoned, inaccurately buttoned
Yeah.
for all these years, what do we have to do? We can't just undo one button. We have to actually undo all of them
Yes. Yeah.
and then start again, right? At the
Exactly.
foundation. And I thought it was
Yeah.
such a powerful,
That's so good.
isn't it? Because you're not taking off the shirt, you're just kind of realigning the buttons,
Yeah. Yes.
right? as
Yeah.
someone later in our career or someone who's been carrying on patterns for a long time, this is
Yeah.
the misalignment of the button down shirt.
Yeah,
What
that's so
resonates for you? Yeah,
that's
I'm
so
curious.
good. When I think it is that sort of coming back to ourselves, right? Like you said earlier, many of us have got into careers because there was a deeper purpose around it, and then that the buttons get sort of misaligned. But it's yeah, coming back to, is there something still here for me in this industry or this
Yeah,
career that I can repurpose, rebutton, I
yeah,
don't know,
exactly.
right? Or is it something entirely different? So I think that that's the piece. And we all yeah, I think it's around that piece is really identifying, who am I now? Who am I now and what fits now?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what are my values today? They might be different than they
Yeah.
were when I was younger. I think that many people also, as we get older and established in our careers, we forget that getting to this level of our careers, we made a whole bunch of mistakes on the way,
Mm,
right? And going into something new can feel terrifying because we don't know the path. But we forget that we didn't know the path earlier on in our careers either, right? So we establish
right.
this identity and we're
Yeah.
successful, but that identity was established over a long period of time and making mistakes and learning and growing. And I think one of the things that stops people from really living into who they really are in the next chapter is it's scary
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
unbutton and rebutton, right? It's scary to
Mm-hmm.
go. Sometimes we may realize we made mistake, like we
Yeah.
made the wrong choice. Like it can bring up a lot of things. Maybe I should have done something different. Maybe I should have chosen a different career.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if I try the thing? Maybe there is a dream that I've
Mm,
had forever to be a psychologist. Maybe what if I try that and I'm not successful? There's so much
yeah.
fear around leaving that comfort zone. And our brains will want to convince us that it's much easier to be in that comfy place where
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to take any risk or risk embarrassment or failure. So that I think is such a thing that we all need to watch out for. It's like if there is some kind of longing for something else, if there's something else you feel like could be
Mm-hmm.
possible, we have to unbutton, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to unbutton, and it's going to feel awful and fearful
Yeah. Well,
and
you're
bring
going
up
to feel a
all,
little exposed,
you're going to feel exactly
right? If
right.
you're
We
unbuttoning,
definitely
you feel a little exposed. So
exactly.
totally, it's such, yeah, it's a great, it's a great help. It's a great visual to help us understand that it's a natural feeling,
Yeah.
right? To feel that. And yet it's okay. It's all still there. We
Hmm.
just kind of realign everything. To your point, you said, what were the three things I wrote down? Remembering, going back to yourself, and reinventing.
Yeah.
These themes are so, so important as you're moving through any transition. As I'm reflecting on your story, going, back from, you've been through a few transitions, right? And
Hmm.
decision points in
Yeah.
your career. As you think about those, is there a common theme that you might notice between those, moving from from the crisis center into the investment industry, and then moving from there into the coaching around wellness, and then moving into retirement coaching
Hmm.
specifically? Is there a common theme that you might
Well,
notice as you think?
I think that who I am has underneath it all has stayed consistent, right? And I might
Mm,
not have necessarily been bringing all parts of myself to those roles earlier.
right.
I do. So I think that my experience having done that. So, if I go back to my first iteration of
Mm,
my business, I was my husband would say I was very successful. I was very successful because I was having like working with people and they would experience deep transformation. I was hosting little retreats and people would leave them crying. They were so,
mm,
so overwhelmed with like the gift of that, the transformation. So I was successful, but I was financially not successful at all, you know?
Right.
So I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, I kind of felt like not that I had to go back, but I didn't know how to solve that in terms
Right.
of, so was it a failure? I could consider it a failure.
Mm-hmm.
I started this business. It didn't financially work, but I learned so much and I was able to
Right.
bring my full self into that business. And so the calling, and I'll kind of relate this back to what I see as sometimes a problem when people do retire is that, um, if you it's going to feel seductive, it's going to feel good when people want you to work for them again. So you'll get the offers to come
Mm-hmm.
back to work. And if you don't really know, or if you haven't planned for that, it can feel good to be wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's sort of one of the mistakes that I see people making when
Mm-hmm.
they retire is that people will approach them to come back to work or serve on the board or whatever that is. But if we haven't really articulated
Mm-hmm.
who we are, what it is we really want, then we might be saying yes to something that potentially should have been a no. And so that's been my experience. It's like, okay, I went back into the industry, but this time when I went back, I'd done all that inner work. I'd worked on myself. I knew how to reinvent
Right.
myself at that point.
Right.
So when I went back, I did it in a different way. So I would have conversations with people about stress. That is, at one point in time, I think it was 2008, I'd done some work as on contract in the industry, 2009, and it was just after the crash or whatever, and I was talking to financial advisors around stress management. So that wouldn't be a typical sales role that I would have,
Right.
approached in the past. So it's like bringing yourself to the experience, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is maybe the theme around that. And then I also feel like all of this was building and I was learning to eventually become who I am now, which is really I am absolutely aligned with my purpose now. But
Mm-hmm.
it took some figuring out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do I teach stress management? Am I a yoga teacher? Am I a
Mm-hmm.
meditation teacher? Am I a pension advisor? Do I help people with money? What do I do? But it's like bringing this all together. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I had to do that. And maybe I had to fail in order for me to normalize for my clients, like you're going to feel nervous about trying something new. It might not work. Like the first thing that you choose might
Agreed.
not work.
Yeah.
But does that mean that all is lost? Because that's how people think, right? It's like, I was this thing. What if I try this new thing and it doesn't work? I'm like, all is
Yeah.
lost. I'm like, no, I'm a living example. It didn't work the first time, but I kept like I knew that there was
Yeah.
something still pulling me
Yeah.
towards
Great.
this. So then it was like, okay, I went back at one point into the pension industry and I started teaching my clients lifestyle, retirement lifestyle planning. So it's like I started, testing this out
Mm-hmm.
while I was in the industry. And then during the pandemic is really when I made the decision to really leave and really go all into this. So,
Nice.
but it was like it's like all of these learning experiences
Mm-hmm.
and getting more and more and more clear about who I really am and my gifts. But my gifts have been born out of challenges, right? Which
Yeah.
is the case with most people.
Most
I
people.
think, like
Mm-hmm.
you'd mentioned it earlier, the pain that we've
Mm-hmm. Pain is your
overcome, the things,
purpose.
yeah, pain is a purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, because it really, and the reason I think that's the case is whatever the pain is, whenever it's happened to you in your life, it may have been one momentous event, or it may have been a series of things over years, right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, what the pain does is it attunes us to the more empathetic position for
Yes.
others, right? We know how that feels, and maybe
Yes.
we don't want others to experience it the same way. So we're
Yeah.
hoping to help people avoid that experience,
That's exactly it. It's like,
right?
what do I know now for sure? Well, I've made all these mistakes, so I hope that I can give my experience to my clients so that they don't make the same
Yeah,
mistakes, right? And normalizing that and it's also okay if we do make
absolutely.
those mistakes, right?
Yeah. Well, there's
Yeah.
a couple of things that you've really highlighted here. You talked about your full self.
Hmm.
And what we noticed even through your journey, but I see this all the time as well with my clients and even myself, we have periods of our life where we test parts of ourselves,
Yes.
right? We test this part and then we might move. And I think it's interesting in your case where going back from psychology and into finance, they couldn't be more drastically different. Like one is just so human and sensitive, and the other one is just numbers and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
So
So we're
funny.
flipping, and we often do that. I think if we all reflect on our lives, we'll often see that we've done things where we're flipping to what I
Yes.
like to refer to. I'm doing this because it's the end of the spectrum, one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And then we kind of go back. And then what'd you do? You went back into yoga, right? So you went to that other end of the spectrum again, but maybe a little closer. And then
Yes.
you went into, okay, let's bring that over here. And as you're finding your way to, as I like to say, the magic's in the middle, as
So
we're
true.
right, as we're testing those different components of our
Yeah.
experience and our life and our interests and who we are. And
Yeah.
obviously, you're a driven woman and you're also a compassionate woman.
Mm-hmm.
And those
Mm-hmm.
two pieces have now found their way to express.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that, Michelle. That really resonates with me. And one of the things that I used to say in the past as I was looking back on my journey is at one point in time, I only thought there was corporate Tammy. This is who I
Mhm.
am in this world, and this is how I behave, right? It was sort of the rules of engagement. And then when I did that, left my career and took that year off, it was like now I'm spiritual Tammy, right? Spiritual.
Exactly.
And those two, they were totally different. I again, it did feel like the complete 180, like you say,
Yeah.
the flipping.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
corporate Tammy, spiritual Tammy. Now I feel like I've integrated both of those
Yeah.
aspects of myself to show up fully. So
Yeah.
sometimes I will weave in things that I've learned through yoga or meditation or, my own journey
Mhm.
into this coaching that I do with my clients who are mainly high achievers, like
Right.
judges, lawyers, entrepreneurs, physicians. They have also primarily lived on that in that one
Mhm.
domain. So it's like, how can we find the other side of maybe more balance or ease or not necessarily spiritual. Like I defined spiritual as being connected to nature, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. But it's like, how do we bring these pieces together? And how do we unravel some of those old conditioned beliefs
Mhm.
around achieving,
Mhm.
like
Absolutely.
climbing the corporate ladder? And then when you get to the top, what's next, right? So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I feel like I'm able to speak the corporate language, speak to people, meet them where they're at, but also kind of weave in a little bit of the woo.
Mhm. Mhm.
I usually warn people, I'm like, okay, I'm going to weave in a little bit of the woo here with,
Yeah. Well, they
yeah.
need, that's what we need.
Mhm.
We talk about it feels very often when we're doing a transition of consequence, whatever
Mhm.
that looks like, it feels like it has to be the opposite or the complete 180 in your
Yes,
language, right?
yes.
It feels like it has to be that
A
way. We have to
complete
reject it
rejection. Yeah. Yeah.
in order to move forward. And that's true to an extent because we need the full experience of the other extreme in a way
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
order to have a sense of what it is in its fullness.
Hmm.
And as we then start to blend and move towards that combination, that's where we get the and. So it's not either
Yeah.
or, but it's and.
Oh,
And
so
when,
good.
right? And
Hmm.
so I see that all the time with my clients as well
Yeah.
in their careers. There's so much of one, I can only do this or this, but I can't do both.
Yes.
And what we try to do, and this is about fulfillment, it's also about differentiating, right,
Hmm.
in our career
Yeah.
because our two or all our parts in combination, the and of
Yeah.
all of it is actually what creates our differentiated value proposition,
Yes. Ooh, so good.
as you're seeing, right,
Yes.
through your work.
Yes.
No one
Yeah.
can
And
do
it's
it like
not a
you.
rejection of who we were.
Right.
It's like the fullness, the and, like
Hmm.
what are all the elements and what else is waiting for me now that I know all of these
Yeah.
elements, right? Yeah,
Exactly. And that's
yeah,
where purpose really starts to rise up and bubble because
yeah.
it becomes less about, as we've talked about, it becomes less about identity or the metrics of success.
Hmm.
We really start to align with how our lives are contributing in some way to the
Hmm.
goodness and experiences of others,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think that's where we start to go, I'm able to bring my fullness in a way that is meaningful for me because my
Hmm.
pain is my purpose.
Hmm.
It's
So, yeah,
meaningful for me, and
yes,
also it supports others to experience a better life as well.
yeah,
So it's
yes,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's really finding that uniqueness, right? Like that,
Hmm.
like you say, the differentiator. It's like, what does this storyline, where is it leading me to? Like, what is the through line? How
Yeah.
do I bring all of these elements together? And
Hmm.
um, and yeah, and I'm just so excited to see people sort of questioning that old definition of
Right.
retirement as like the full stop, but it's like, no, what else is waiting for me, right?
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah,
And oh, my goodness, how amazing if we were to fulfill in support those in retirement to fulfill that.
I
Because you're
know.
right. I think the traditional view of retirement is certainly uninspiring,
Yes.
if not anything else, where,
I
you
know.
get into these blue zones
Yeah.
and start looking at ikigai and whatnot, and
Hmm.
these philosophies of contribution, and how even as a centenarian, their lives feel purposeful, like they're
Yes.
contributing in meaningful ways to their community in even the smallest of ways, but ways that are
Hmm.
honor who they are and what they want to bring forward.
Hmm.
It's just so
Yeah.
lovely. So, oh
It
yeah,
is so lovely.
it's really
There's
so,
so much work to be done around that piece,
yeah.
right? Around the way that we think about aging, particularly in our society. It's like we need to question all of that. And here's the reality. You probably know this, but the reason that normal retirement age is 65 is that age was arbitrarily chosen in the 1800s. So 65, why do
Most
we
people didn't
retire?
even live that long, did
They
they?
didn't. They lived to 47. So it meant that less than 1% of the population actually made it to 65 to retire. So can you like we
Yeah.
really need to question our worth being tied to some number.
Yeah.
And that
This is,
that means that we should stop working. It doesn't mean we should stop working. It means that we each get to decide, like if we're still engaged, those people who feel like their work is a calling and they want to contribute, they
mhm.
want to continue in that work, then why retire at 65? And I
Yeah.
think and for us to think about what is that meaningful contribution after that point.
Hmm.
Um, who do we
Hmm.
want to be? Who are we
Right.
becoming?
Which is really an opportunity, as you said, to align yourself with
Hmm.
all your parts and see
Hmm.
how that might express. And
Yeah.
it's not always in paid work. Everybody's so different,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it's really honoring all those different parts and
Yeah.
contributing in ways that are meaningful to you and to others
Yes.
as well, where we
Yeah.
feel that our life matters, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mattering
Yeah.
is so important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that, yeah, I mean, we could talk about this for hours. So
I know.
I'm loving this conversation, really
Me
appreciate
too.
the wisdom in it. So Tammy, as we're thinking about the conversation today and our listeners and those who are joining us,
Hmm.
what have you noticed in the conversation today that you really might like to highlight for our audience?
Hmm. Well, I loved your metaphor about, sometimes there's some misalignment in the way the buttons are buttoned up. And it's really for everyone to kind of stop, like pause a little bit, slow down a little bit, and ask themselves, like, is is there misalignment in the way that I'm living my life do I feel like there is something more waiting for me? Because we can convince ourselves that we're doing the right thing by staying in a career, people rely on us, those kinds of things. But it's like, is there something still waiting for you? I think we need to trust that. And that would be what I would want people to think about is like, is there something here that I haven't explored? Do I
Mm-hmm.
have this did I have a dream that I maybe left behind that could potentially be resurrected, in this next chapter? So questioning that old narrative about what retirement means.
Mm-hmm.
What if it means you get to do what you want when you want? Like what if that means a business or
Right.
recareering? There's so many different options available, but I think it's for each of us to go, what is it for me? What do I actually
Mm-hmm.
want my life to look like as I get older? Who is my
Mm-hmm.
future self?
Beautiful. Who is my future self? What does
Hmm.
me look like now and
Yeah.
going forward? Beautiful
Yeah.
questions. Yeah. What's
Yeah.
lingering for me? Tammy, that's lovely. So, for those who would like to connect with you further, who are in transition or perhaps already in retirement and feeling that emptiness that we talked about,
Mhm.
where might they find you?
Yeah, so they can find me. My website is tammyvigue.com, so they can come to that. And I'm on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, connect with me. I love to connect with people through LinkedIn as well. And if they're interested in doing the deeper dive into defining what their retirement life would look like, I have an online course, the Curated Retirement. So I launch that a few times a year, and I'd love to have your listeners join.
Perfect.
Hmm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
I've
so
just been
much.
delighted by this conversation. It's always a treat to connect with you. So,
You too, Michelle.
thank you
Thank
for
you so
today.
much for today.
My genuine pleasure. We'll see you soon. Bye for
Okay,
now.
thanks.